Traditionally in Serbian club football, there are two main powerhouses, Red Star Belgrade and Partizan. These two teams have dominated Serbian football for nearly 75 years, winning many titles in both the Yugoslav First League and later in the Serbian Superliga. However, during the 1990s, these two clubs' domestic domination was threatened by a relatively unknown team called FC Obilić. Much of this domestic success was due to the club's eccentric owner, a man by the name of Arkan, who was a Serbian mobster and warlord. In this video I'm going to talk about Arkan and his infamous tenure as owner of FC Obilić. FC Obilić was founded in 1924 in Belgrade, making it one of the oldest clubs in Serbia. The club's name is derived from Milos Obilić, a legendary Serbian knight from the 14th century who was a major figure in Serbian folklore. After the club's founding, FC Obilić found moderate success, eventually being promoted to the top tier of Serbian football. However, due to the outbreak of the Second World War, football in Yugoslavia was almost grinded to a complete halt, and the events of the war also caused a total reorganization of the Yugoslavian football leagues. After the war, the new Yugoslavian government under Tito cracked down on symbols and ideas that the government deemed to be too nationalist and divisive. As a result, the club was forced to change its name because the name Obilić was seen as being too Serbian. However, they were later allowed to change it back. Over the next 40-odd years, FC Obilić slowly made progress through the local Serbian football leagues, until finally in 1988 they qualified for the Yugoslav Third League, where they would face off against teams from throughout Yugoslavia. Obilić had finally left the smaller regional leagues in Serbia to play on a bigger stage. But just as Obilić began to make its way up, political unrest swept over Yugoslavia, and eventually in 1992 the Yugoslavian League was disbanded altogether because of the ongoing conflict. Obilić was subsequently placed in the newly founded Second National League, a league composed of Serbian and Montenegrin clubs. But despite these changes to the league structure, Obilić began to perform well, and they started to become a serious competitor, appearing in the Yugoslav Cup final against Red Star in 1995. It was then, in 1996, Jelko Rosnatović, better known as Arkan, purchased FC Obilić. But just who was Arkan? It's difficult to describe who Arkan was because he was a truly larger-than-life figure who lived an extremely exciting yet controversial life, but I'll try my best to summarize. Arkan was born in Yugoslavia and later moved to Western Europe, where he would become a prolific bank and jewelry store robber. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Arkan carried out countless robberies in a number of countries in Western Europe. As a result, he was sent to prison 4 times. However, all 4 times he was sent to prison, he would escape. Yes, you heard that right. This guy escaped prison 4 times, including an armed escape from a courtroom. Because of Arkan's criminal activity, he became one of Interpol's most wanted criminals, and as a result, he decided to return home to Yugoslavia to avoid arrest. Arkan is thought to have had close ties with the Yugoslav Secret Service, even working for them on occasion. This was due to the fact that Arkan's father was a close friend of the chief of the State Security Administration, so basically any time Arkan was facing legal trouble in Yugoslavia, he could rely on them to help. Arkan later moved to Belgrade and invested in a number of businesses in the city and beyond, gradually becoming one of the wealthiest men in the Balkans. Arkan also became a massive football fan and a supporter of Red Star Belgrade. In fact, he was the main founder and leader of the club's ultra fan group called the Delije. With Arkan in charge, Red Star's football hooligans would often get into fights with opposing team supporters. Most notably, he participated in an infamous riot during a match between Red Star and Zagreb in 1990. During the riot, Serbian and Croatian football fans brawled with one another in the stands, leading to many serious injuries. But Arkan is most well known for his military service in the breakup of Yugoslavia. When the Wars of Independence began, Arkan formed a paramilitary group consisting predominantly of Red Star Belgrade football ultras and also Arkan's personal friends and associates. This paramilitary group was called the Serb Volunteer Guard, but they were also known as the Tigers. This group would go on to support the Yugoslav People's Army in Croatia. Arkan's Tigers became one of the most feared paramilitary groups in the wars to follow, and despite Arkan lacking any military experience or training, he was a very effective leader. and throughout the war the Tigers would win many battles in Croatia and Bosnia. But Arkan and the Tigers were also responsible for unspeakably terrible crimes during the war. The Tigers carried out ethnic cleansing and massacres of both Bosniak and Croatian civilians. Throughout the war, they are thought to have killed hundreds of civilians. Arkan would also gain the reputation of being a war profiteer, taking advantage of the war by establishing a black market and other criminal enterprises. This led to him amassing an even bigger fortune. After the war ended in 1995, Arkan became a celebrity in Serbia. Some saw him as an opportunistic war profiteer, while others hailed him as being a patriotic war hero. He would also go on to marry the immensely popular Serbian turbo folk star Sesa in 1995. He was simply one of the most powerful and influential men in post-war Serbia. It was then, in the peak of his popularity and success, that Arkan got affiliated with FC Obilić. Considering his massive fortune and passion for football, he decided to buy and run FC Obilić. Under Arkan, Obilić would be a top team, winning the Yugoslav First League for the first time in their history in the 1997-98 season. It was such a dominant season for Obilić that they finished the season with only a single loss. In the season after, they were part of the qualifying rounds of the Champions League, where they eventually lost to Bayern Munich. It's incredible to consider the club was relatively unknown only 10 years prior, and now they were facing off against the eventual runners-up of the Champions League final, and were the reigning champions of the Yugoslav First League. In the following 1998-1999 season, Partizan won the title, with Obilić finishing only 2 points behind in second place. Obilić now seemed on course to become one of the strongest clubs in Serbia, and would go on to challenge Partizan at Red Star's dominance for many seasons to come. The feats of FC Obilić were absolutely incredible, from a relatively obscure club to one of the top teams in Serbia in only a few years. But how exactly was Arkan able to achieve this success? Well, sadly, the management of FC Obilić was filled with corruption and illegal activity. Arkan became notorious for intimidating the teams facing FC Obilić. Arkan and former members of the Tigers would threaten opposing players, telling them they would shoot them in the kneecap if they scored against them. There were even cases where the Tigers would point guns at players during games and would threaten them from the stands. Arkan also allegedly locked an opposing team's player in a garage before the game so they would miss the match against Obilić. And during the games, the Obilić Ultras would chant things about murdering players if they dared score against them. It was also claimed that Arkan himself would enter the opposing team's dressing rooms at halftime and would yell and point weapons at the players if Obilić were losing. The refs were also threatened into submission by Arkan and members of the Tigers. That being said, Obilić was still a very good team, with a number of talented players, but these intimidation tactics obviously played a significant role in much of their success. I think it's very telling that even Partizan and Red Star, which are well known for their tough and passionate fans, could not face up to Obilić's supporters. Then again, many members of the Red Star Ultras fan group, the Delije, had joined the Serbian Volunteer Guard and fought alongside Arkan during the war, later becoming Obilić supporters. It was also later revealed that Arkan and Sesa had embezzled millions from the transfers of Obilić's top players, so all sorts of corruption and illegal activity was going on at the club. In the late 1990s, Arkan was accused of war crimes in both Bosnia and Croatia, and because of this, as well as other controversies, FC Obilić was forbidden from competing in European competitions, so he instead appointed his wife, Sesa, as owner to avoid the ban. In the following seasons, Serbian football clubs band together to stand up against Arkan's intimidation. They had had enough of Obilić, and with all the clubs working to root out this intimidation and corruption, Arkan gradually was unable to continue intimidating the opposing teams. And then, suddenly, in January of 2000, Arkan was assassinated at the Belgrade Continental Hotel. There is still mystery surrounding his death, but it is thought that the killing was carried out by either a criminal organization or a political rival, and his death also signified the end of Obilić's brief period of success. After Arkan's death, the club was greatly mismanaged by his wife Sesa. The years of corruption and mismanagement began to take its toll, and the team greatly regressed in quality for multiple seasons, until they were eventually relegated from the Serbian top tier in 2006, after a number of disappointing seasons. And Obilić would continue to collapse, until in 2012, Obilić would fall all the way down to the 7th division of Serbian club football, the lowest division in the country. And currently in 2022, FC Obilić is no longer actively taking part in any competitive football competitions in any capacity. Obilić has faded back into obscurity. All that remains now is the vacant Obilić Stadium.